Hey yo, hey yo, man, yo, man. The topic of this video, guys, is going to be about a godless world. That is the topic of this video, guys. A godless world. Man, I'm exhausted, man, I swear. And I feel so tired out. I've been doing so much like work today. Going to like some type of work. Basically it's not work, but it's like a training course thing, I don't know. I feel very fucking exhausted, man. I feel very, very tired out and exhausted. So like, anyway, but the topic of this video, guys, is going to be about a godless world. I wanted to talk about now a little bit more about like what would it actually, what are like some of the ramifications of atheism. I did make quite a bunch of videos on atheism. I think I did make quite a bunch of videos on atheism and all that type of stuff. Quite a bunch of videos, man. I think I did make quite a bunch of videos on atheism and all that type of stuff. And I really do like getting into like all the nitty gritty, all like the consequences of like what's it actually going to be like to be in a godless world. And really, I think I pretty much nailed it in those other videos I made already. I think I pretty much already nailed it. But I wanted to just keep delving into these into these types of topics, into these types of videos, video ideas and all that type of stuff. Specifically, like what's it actually mean to have like to live in a world without a god or deities existing? What does that actually mean? What does atheism actually mean, to be honest? You know, what is atheism? Atheism is basically in a nutshell, atheism is like the assertion that there are no gods, there are no deities above our skies. It's all just fucking, we pretty much are just on our own. There's no sky father, no sky daddy to look after us or anything like that, or something like that. That's basically what atheism is. A godless world. That's the topic of this video. I really want to get into like now the nitty gritty. I don't know. I want to get into the nitty gritty topics of this, and I want to talk about the ramifications. I want to talk more about the ramifications of it, innit? I want to talk more about it, man. It's so interesting. I wanted to get a little bit more into it now in this video, man. What a godless world, what's that actually going to look like? A godless world, what's that actually look like? It's so interesting. What's that? A godless world is such an interesting topic. Always do like kind of like talking about like some of the ramifications of atheism. It's kind of is like a theme on my channel that I talk about these types of things. So fascinating, man. It's so interesting. These types of topics, man, I fucking love it. These types of topics, man, I fucking love it, man. Talking about them. I love talking about these types of topics, man. But anyway, don't want to waste any time on introductions or any of that. Don't want to waste time on introductions, man. Without any further ado, let's just get into it, man. Like a godless world, what's that actually look like? To begin with, especially when we're talking about like God not existing. No God, no rule maker, basically. Morality gets thrown out the window, guys. Like atheists, they can never prove to you that, you know, in terms of like morality, ethics, this is like concrete, this is actually like without God, like morality can actually make any sense. Like there's actually such a thing as like morality and ethics. If you think about it carefully, these things, they kind of do relate back to they do link back to a higher power. I do believe so, guys. I do believe so, 100%. If you think about it very, very carefully, morality, ethics, these types of things, it all goes back to a higher power, but a belief in a higher power. It can only make sense if you believe in a higher power, morality and ethics, because if you just believe that there is no God and there are no deities, where's the morality coming from? Then it kind of becomes kind of almost absurd. Do morals just exist on their own? It's kind of very absurd. Obviously, it's a little bit dubious and it's kind of a little bit subjective, so I can't really stress anything too confidently, but Like, if you don't believe in a higher power, where's your morality coming from? It all kind of, it only makes sense if you believe in a higher power to some extent. Like, because morality, why would morality, ethics, why would that exist by itself on its own? It doesn't make any logical sense, man. It only makes sense if it goes back to a higher power. That's why it's so kind of dubious to me a little bit that people, especially atheists, I do believe that some atheists, they pretty much just they kind of renounce morality as well. They think that there is no such thing as like morality in an objective sense. There is like no morality in an objective sense. Some atheists would kind of agree to that, but a lot of atheists, they still like they're still they're kind of very delusional to some extent. They still hold on to like the beliefs of like morality and ethics, even while disregarding the existence of God. That seems like a bit of a paradox to me, because morality, ethics, where does that all go back to then? If you don't believe it, that it can only make sense if it goes back to a higher power. Morality, ethics, that only makes sense, guys. If you think about it carefully, it only makes sense if you believe that it all comes from like a higher power. These like morality, ethics, how the fuck does that make sense if there is no God? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like moral, good and bad, who gets to determine that if there is no God? Think about that so carefully, guys. If there is no God, who gets to determine good and bad and ethics and morality and all of that type of stuff? It all is just pretty much up for grabs, isn't it? It's pretty much just on us to decide those types of things. These types of things like good and bad, who gets to determine that? Think about God, like God out of the picture. Who's going to determine these types of things like good and bad, morality, ethics, and all that type of stuff? It all it's pretty much all just up for grabs, man. I swear. That's why if you're an atheist, you have to fucking believe to some extent in nihilism, man. I swear. Like morality and ethics and good and bad, all that type of stuff, it just goes out the fucking window, man. It's how are you gonna like? Where does that all go back to? It's so dubious to me. But a godless world. I think one of the consequences of a godless world, guys, is going to be the fact that one of the consequences is going to be that I think that morality is just going to get thrown out the window, man. I 100% do think so. I believe so. That morality is going to get fucking thrown out the window. I think that morality is just going to get thrown out the window. That would be like one of the consequences of like living in a godless world. That morality and ethics is just going to get thrown out the window. I do believe so. I think that morals, as time goes on, I think that morality is just going to become more and more nonsensical. I do believe so, guys. I think that as time goes on, like these like ideas about like good and bad and evil and all that type of stuff, we're gonna soon come to the realization that these things are just as imaginary as like fairies and ghosts and demons and maybe God if you're an atheist. It's like, because it kind of follows the same logic, doesn't it? Because if God doesn't exist because there's no tangible proof or evidence, morality, ethics, it kind of follows the same logic if you think about it. Because morality, ethics, these things are tangible, cannot be proven using the scientific methods. So, in that same light, I think that a godless world, one of the ramifications, consequences is going to be that I think morality is just going to get thrown out the window. I think there's going to be a lot more chaos and like nihilism, moral nihilism is kind of oxymoron. I don't know. I just think there's going to be a lot more chaos, guys. With morality getting thrown out, with living in a godless world, one of the consequences, guys, is going to be the fact that morality is probably pretty much going to get thrown out the window. Because, it doesn't make sense. It can only make sense, like, morality and ethics and all that type of stuff. That can only make sense if it goes back to a higher power, a God. You get me, fam? A creator God. It doesn't make any sense. If you don't believe in a God, how can you possibly make sense of like morality and ethics and good and bad? It almost becomes kind of absurd. Like, who gets to determine what is good and what is bad? These types of like things. Who's going to determine it if there is no God? It's like, do we determine our own morality and ethics? That's kind of very dumb. Because we can determine different values for ourselves, different types of moralities and ethics and all that. It becomes kind of fucking stupid if you think about it, guys. A godless world, guys, one of the consequences, I do believe so, guys, is that I think, 100% morality is just going to get thrown out the window, guys. Morality is going to get thrown out the window and we're just going to fucking sink into, a pit of nihilism. Nihilism is probably going to be another, I want to get into that. I already got into that so many different times in like a bunch of other videos I already made, man. A godless world, one of the consequences, man, is that I do think so, guys. That pretty much morality is going to get thrown out the window. I do think so. A godless world, because if God doesn't exist, then it's very difficult to make sense of morality in a very objective way, in a very objective way, in a way that isn't like completely subjective and arbitrary. Because a lot of you would say that we can still determine our own morality and values, but it's not going to be based off anything that's like very like objective, is it? How can you come to the conclusion that there's like a specific like sense of like morality, a specific like action is good or bad? How can you, like, through the scientific method, how could you make sense of that? It kind of becomes almost absurd. So, like, you know, a godless world, one of the consequences, I do believe so, guys, is that morality is going to get thrown out the fucking window, guys. That's like, yeah, because no god, no rule maker, who gets to determine good and bad? It all becomes kind of like lawless. I do believe so, anarchy and all that type of stuff. Even though I do think we're kind of like, you can feel some of the effects of this as well, especially in like a lot of Western societies, man. You can feel like some of the, you can feel the effects. You can feel the effects and all that type of stuff. You can feel the effects and all that. You can feel a little bit of the effects of it. Of like how anarchy is, well, not really anarchy, but you can feel the fact that morality is kind of, it's almost like, especially it's becoming more and more sensationalized, more and more question. We don't really, I think a lot of us we're especially in the West, we're starting to think that there is like really no such thing as morality, and that anything is kind of goes, really, it's all just like about what you think is good and feels right for you. Right? I think that's kind of what we're heading towards. But really, a godless world, one of the consequences, guys, I do think so, guys, is that I do think so that definitely I think morality is going to get thrown out the fucking window, guys. I do believe so. How can you make sense of morality if God doesn't exist? Think about that so carefully. Good and bad, law and order, all of that, it only makes sense if you believe in a higher power. Think about it. Who's going to determine the morality, the ethics? Who's going to determine good and bad? It can only make sense if you believe in a higher power. It cannot make sense if you just think that we all just came from nothing, basically, and there was no one that created anything, and there's really, everything just emerged from chaos, and God doesn't exist, and we just came from like fucking monkeys, and we evolved and stuff and blah blah blah. It's this, like, there's no morality in any of this stuff. It can only make sense if you believe in a higher power, morality and ethics, because otherwise it's just like, it's just basically just words and like beliefs and ideas in the human brain. It's like, it's completely subjective and meaningless. Atheists, they can never prove to you that like you can like, as an atheist, they can never prove to you, right, that morality you can objectively come to like some type of, objectively you can like make sense of morality without a god or some type of higher power involved. That's like, that is no atheist can even fucking, no atheist can prove this to you, guys. Yeah, but I don't want to keep dwelling on and on about that, but that's like one of the biggest issues, I think so, one of the ramifications with living in a godless world, is that I think so 100% that godless world, I think that morality is going to get thrown out the window, guys. 100%. I think so. I think we're just gonna fucking, I think that everything's just gonna like fucking turn upside down again. No god, no rule maker, who's going to determine good and bad? You can only make sense of morality if you believe in a higher power. I do believe so. I think that if you don't believe in a higher power, it all becomes meaningless. Morality, ethics, it's just like human inventions, basically, that cannot be like proven through the scientific method, through observation and experimentation. You cannot prove morality and ethics. So living in a godless world, one of the consequences, big consequences, I think so, is that we're all going to be moving towards like moral nihilism, existential nihilism. Again, morality, ethics, that shit, it only fucking makes sense if you fucking believe in a higher power. If you don't believe in a higher power, where does all that shit go back to then? If you're an atheist, where does your morality go back to? It's you would soon realize it only goes back to your own subjective mentality and feelings and emotions and human inventions, basically. It doesn't go back to anything more extraordinary. But anyway, that's one of the biggest consequences like living in a godless world. Is like not moral, like morality is just gonna get thrown out the window. Morality, ethics, all of that's just gonna become too like, it's almost gonna be like, it's made like sensationalized. It's gonna be turned into something that's like sort of just like a mockery, basically. And you can feel it today, right now. Morality, you cannot, if you don't believe there's any sort of higher power, you cannot make sense of morality. It becomes kind of absurd and meaningless. Really, it becomes so fucking absurd if you don't believe in a higher power. How can you possibly make sense of like morality and ethics? It's kind of almost absurd anyway, but I don't want to keep dwelling on and on about that. I think I clarified that very well. That's like one big ramification, consequence of like living in a godless world, is that morality is going to get thrown out the window. Another consequence is that it's like us human beings, it's like with religion, where it's like, think about a boat in an ocean. A boat is like in an ocean, there's like a sail, and there's all these like things that a boat has, and the paddles. Religion is kind of like a boat. Believing in a higher power. God is like being in a boat, and you're in the ocean, and the boat, and God is like the sail. It kind of gives you a direction, some type of like place to go towards. Living in a godless world, if you don't believe in any type of higher power, basically, if you don't believe in a higher power, then like fucking where do you like, it's like being in a boat but without a sail. That's basically the case here, isn't it? Like, I think we're just gonna, as a human beings, we're just gonna fucking lose any type of sort of like greater purpose for ourselves. If like once, like living in a godless world, where are you gonna get your higher existential purpose from? Not just like your own meaningless bullshit, like hedonistic purpose, like pleasure. Typically, a lot of us, we define our purposes and meanings through pleasure now, right? Pleasure and pain. That's like how we determine our ethics and our morality. Not ethics and morality, but like how we determine our like higher like calling and stuff. We basically just like turn to our animalistic desires, and that's, we live for basically pleasure. I think a lot of us right now, especially if you're from like Europe and America, you probably most likely do just live for, more or less, you probably just live for pleasure. I think so. I think a lot of us now, we just live for pleasure. Living in a godless world, if you're not going to turn to any higher power, you're probably just going to live for pleasure. I know some of you are going to be like, no, not me. I think 100% guys, I think a lot of you guys, I think a lot of you are just going to be living for pleasure. Because if you don't believe in a higher power, God, why give a fuck about anything? Why not just live for pleasure? Why not just turn to hedonism? That's what so many of us do. I think so. A lot of us, we're probably just living for pleasure, not for any type of higher existential purpose or fulfillment. You're probably just living for pleasure. I think you probably are going to disagree, but I think so. If you carefully analyze your own behaviors and mannerisms and your goals and ambitions, it's probably you're just living for pleasure. I think a lot of us now, due to like the fact that we're no longer very religious, especially if you're from like, you know, Europe or America, you're probably living for pleasure. I think so. I do think so, guys. I think that a lot of us now, we're just living for fucking pleasure. We're not really living for any type of higher spiritual existential purpose. A lot of us, we're just fucking living for quick buzzes, like for hookups and all that type of stuff. That's kind of what happens living in a godless world. That's kind of what's going to happen. I do think so, that as we turn away from God, I think we're just going to turn towards our fucking animalistic desires. A lot of us, we're just going to be living for pleasure, and I think that's already happening. Whatever type of pleasure you have in mind, like drugs, alcohol, all that type of stuff. If you turn away from God, I think that a lot of us, we just tend to live for pleasure. I know a lot of atheists, they're big into like porn and all that, and porn stuff and video games and whatever. Basically, they just live for pleasure. Like, once you turn away from God, basically all you're going to be living for is pleasure. Basically, I think that's the only thing that's going to be left. What else is going to be left? There's not going to be anything else left. Fucking hell, man. Living in a godless world, I think that once you turn away from God, like the only thing that's left is like you're going to be living for pleasure. Basically, a lot of you are going to be contentious, disagree. Not 100%, guys. If you turn away from God, and the only thing that you're going to have left is like you're just going to be living for pleasure. I do think so. If you turn away from God, you're probably most likely you're going to be turning towards your animalistic desires. You're probably just going to be living for pleasure. That's what happens to so many of us, like human beings. Like, once you turn away from God, like what are you going to be living for? It's probably just going to be like bullshit, man. You're probably just going to be living for pleasure, basically, in a nutshell. And is that really that bad? I don't know. Is it that bad? I don't know. That you shouldn't live for pleasure or whatever. I think it's kind of a little bit good. And obviously, it's a little bit subjective and dubious. I don't know. I think another big ramification is like living in a godless world. It's like being in a boat. Religion is like a boat. And God is like the sail, and it gives you like a type of direction, a type of existential purpose. Without God, it's like you're in a boat that doesn't have any sail, so you don't really have anywhere to go. You don't really have any clear, like sort of like direction to follow or anything like that. Everything just kind of becomes so like you just randomly float throughout the ocean. That's basically what I'm kind of getting at here. Living in a godless world, one of the other consequences that it's like kind of you lose as a human being. You really do lose your existential purpose if you turn away from God and you just turn, like the only thing that's left for you to turn towards is going to be like fucking, it's going to be fucking hedonism, pleasure and stuff like that, and porn and all that type of stuff. There's nothing else left to turn towards. I think so, 100%. I think so, yeah. Like if you're not going to be turning towards God, you're going to be turning towards like fucking hedonism and pleasure and all that. What else is left? There's nothing else left. There's just going to be hedonism, pleasure, dopamine. You're just gonna be chasing dopamine. That's basically all you're gonna be doing. A lot of you could be like very dubious. Like don't dupe yourself, guys. If you turn away from God, you're just going to be turning towards hedonism. You're just going to be living for pleasure. I know you guys. I know all you like little young edgy atheist fucks. I know you guys. All you do is jack off the porn, play video games, Marvel, DC. You just fucking live for pleasure, basically. Because what else are you going to be living for? If you turn away from God, the only thing that you're going to be turning towards is like hedonism and pleasure. There's nothing else left from that. That's why it's kind of like, it's kind of a little bit sad. I don't know, but living in a godless world, another big consequence for us human beings, guys, is that it's like it's like picture an ocean. There's like a boat, but without like the sail, and it's like being in a boat without a sail. That's like what happens when you stop believing in God. You're just like, you lose any sort of direction for yourself and for your life. Everything just starts. It's like being in a boat in the middle of an ocean, and then the boat's just randomly floating by. There's no like direction. God is like a sail for a boat. It's kind of it gives you like a direction if you believe in like a higher power. But really, if you guys don't believe in a higher power, it's like being in a boat but without a sail. You're just going to be directionless in life. You're going to lose your existential purpose and etc. And probably and typically when you turn away from God, what happens is a lot of us, we turn towards hedonism and pleasure. A lot of us, we tend to just live for pleasure. Then basically, I know a lot of like, especially if you're like very atheistic, like maybe perhaps you might be like more like disciplined. You might be living towards, like, maybe you might live your life in a more, I guess, more wholesome way. You might be like more of going towards like you want to like be more educated. You value knowledge and like becoming enlightened and stuff. Perhaps maybe that might be like, I know some of you might be like that. Some of you like atheists and like non-religious people might be more about like enlightenment and like education and stuff like that, and understanding the truth. But I think a lot of us, once you turn away from God, a lot of us, we just tend to turn towards pleasure and hedonism, and we embrace our animalistic desires and all that type of stuff. And that's kind of fucking, it's quite a funny tragedy. Isn't that kind of very funny? It's quite funny to me, I don't know. Isn't that typically the case though? If you turn away from God and you start to turn towards pleasure. Anyway, but I'm kind of dwelling on the same points. What else? So far, let me just recap. Living in a godless world, morality is going to get thrown out the window. No God, no rule maker. Who's going to determine good and bad? And another consequence. I think so, guys. Another consequence. I do think so. Another consequence, I think so, is going to be the fact that as human beings, we're going to lose our existential purpose. We're going to lose our existential purpose. It's like being in a boat. Picture an ocean. You're in a boat. Like, picture an ocean. There's like a boat in the ocean, and you don't. It's like if you live in a godless world. It's like being in a boat that doesn't have any type of sail. It's like being in a boat that doesn't have any type of sail. It's kind of fucking me. It almost becomes pointless, doesn't it? Almost becomes kind of fucking pointless, man. So that's like another consequence. We're just going to lose our direction and our existential purpose, living in a godless world. Obviously, another consequence is that once you start to turn, a lot of us, we tend, like, once you turn away from God, a lot of us, we just tend to turn towards our animalistic desires and hedonism and pleasure. Basically, a lot of us, we start to chase pleasure and hedonism once we start to turn away from God, and that's quite a tragedy, guys. What else? I'm kind of like, okay, so that's what I recap so far. I think what else is going to happen is that, yeah, hedonism is probably going to be more common. I think the average person is going to be slowly starting to become more deranged. A little bit more deranged, more sexually promiscuous. I think like what's going to happen is that like concepts like marriage and virginity, that's going to not really be valued as much anymore in the future. In a godless world, like, why care about like marriage and virginity? Why not just sleep around? Because no one's going to care in the end anyway, right? There's no afterlife, basically, in heaven and hell. There's no afterlife. There's no heaven and hell. So why not just fucking? Why care about marriage and virginity? These things become meaningless then. I don't know. It is typically the case, right? That once a civilization starts to become like less religious, less caring about God and etc., typically you're gonna see a lot more degeneracy and stuff like that. A lot more degeneracy and all that type of stuff. You're gonna see a lot more degeneracy. Because why care about fucking marriage, virginity? It all, like, if there's, like, in the end it all becomes meaningless because God doesn't exist and no afterlife. Why care? We can do whatever we want, blah 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 blah. I think, yeah, in the future, living in a godless world, especially in a godless future, you're gonna see like things like marriage, virginity, all of that type of stuff. It's just gonna get pretty much brushed to the side. No one's gonna start to care about these types of things. as much anymore. I think it's what you're going to see more in the future in a godless world. It's going to be like more promiscuity, more like degeneracy. Typically, that's so true. That's so much the case, man. That's typically the more you turn away from religion, the more you come towards like degeneracy and hedonism and chasing pleasure and dopamine. So yeah, things like marriage, virginity, all that's going to get brushed to the side. I do believe so in the future. All of that is going to be a thing of the past, man. I do think so. In the future, things like virginity, marriage, all of that is going to get brushed to the side. What else? Also, I think that, yeah, just in general, like the average person's just not going to be living in a fruitful way. I think the average person's going to be living for pleasure and dopamine and hedonism, basically, without a higher power. Us human beings, we kind of revert. We become no different from animals. I do think so. We only care about like survival, reproduction, chasing like things related to pleasure and dopamine. We don't really strive for anything greater and more esoteric and existential. That's another consequence. I think that us human beings in general, living in a godless world, I think that we're just going to become more animalistic. I do think so, guys. I think that we're just going to become a lot more animalistic. I do think so, guys. 100%. I think so that in the future, in a godless world, we're going to become a lot more animalistic, and we are becoming a lot more animalistic. We're becoming more concerned with like pleasure and like hedonism and degeneracy. We don't really care anymore about like fucking anything existential, more esoteric and spiritual. We're becoming more like concerned with like fucking hedonism and all that type of stuff. And pleasure and dopamine, that's what we care about now. Like dopamine, chasing dopamine, that's like the big thing now, isn't it? Like hedonism, fucking no longer do we care about fucking anything more greater and esoteric and spiritual. We just fucking care about fucking getting high and like doing drugs and all that. Fucking some fucking bullshit noise, man. But living in a godless world, yeah, I definitely think that us human beings, we're just going to turn back into animals, basically. I think we're just going to be becoming more animalistic. I do think so. Because religion, it kind of like caused us to like, it was like sort of like a chain that kept us back and away from our animalistic side, our animalistic like desires. I think that once that chain has been removed, once religion becomes more and more irrelevant, once God becomes more and more mocked, I think that we're just going to become more animalistic. And again, if you turn away from God, what really the only thing that you have left to turn towards is like pleasure and hedonism and degeneracy and just living for dopamine and pleasure. Basically, what else are you going to be living for if there's no higher power? It almost becomes meaningless, and the only thing left to live for is like pleasure and like hedonism and degeneracy. That is so like, it's almost like it's fucking so sad. It's kind of very, it's sad. It's kind of funny as well, but it's like very sad that this is the direction that we're probably all going to head towards. Degeneracy, fucking chasing pleasure, dopamine fixes and all that. That's what we're probably going to head towards, guys. Isn't that fucking hilarious? That is the future, I think so. 100%, I think so. That's probably going to be the future, guys. That you're just going to see like the average person is just going to be a fucking animal. We're just going to all become more animalistic. Chasing like, because if you turn away from God, the only thing that's left that you have left to turn towards is like fucking hedonism, degeneracy, pleasure, wanting like all. That's so true. That's so true. You think that's not the case. You probably think that you're very special and unique. But if you turn away from God, like the only thing left to turn towards is like fucking degeneracy, pleasure, hedonism. Is kind of, that's typically, I think that's what's going to happen in the future, in a godless future. Hopefully, maybe, perhaps, who knows? You can't predict the future. Maybe, but even right now, you can see that people are becoming less and less like concerned about like chastity, marriage, virginity. We're just all like, we all just want to have a good time, drink a lot of booze, alcohol, liquor, fuck a lot of women, go and get into orgies and all that type of stuff. Why? Who gives a fuck? Because in the end, it doesn't mean anything. So this is what's going to happen, guys. I do think so, guys. That once you start to turn away from God, you're probably going to turn towards hedonism, pleasure, degeneracy. I think so, 100%, man. 100%, I think so. Now, if you turn away from God, you're probably going to be turning towards degeneracy, hedonism, and pleasure, man. I think so. 100% think so. What else is there going to be? What else are you going to be living for? If there is no higher power, what are you going to be living for? It kind of becomes fucking stupid to me, man. A lot of atheists are not going to agree. So many fucking... When I make these types of videos, it's so fucking infuriating to me that there's certain people, they go pissy. I try and... They don't even attack my arguments. They fucking attack me as a person. They call me an idiot. They say that I don't understand atheism, but they don't even address any of my arguments. These fucking idiots, man. And that's how you know that you're spitting facts. You're telling the truth. It's that when people try and attack you, they don't critique your arguments. They critique you as a person. They just kind of divert the attention away towards you as a person. They mock you. They insult you, but they don't attack you. They don't even bother to deal with your arguments. That's how you know that you're spitting facts, that you're telling the truth. Is that whoever is trying to argue with you, they don't attack you. They don't attack your arguments. They attack you as a person. They call you an idiot. They don't even address. They don't even want to bother addressing your arguments. It's kind of fucking. That's how you know you're spitting the fact. You're spitting facts and you're telling the truth. That when people try and debate and argue with you, they don't even bother addressing your arguments. They just attack you as a person, as an individual. They just start to insult you and critique you, maybe physically and all that type of stuff. They don't even bother dealing with like your arguments. They just attack you as a person. They attack you as a person. They don't even bother. They don't even want to deal with your arguments and all that. That's how you know that you're spitting facts, telling the truth. But anyway, it's a big fat side tangent, but I gotta keep moving on. Yeah, man, just living in a godless world, we're just gonna turn into fucking animals. No morality. Like again, to bring it back to what I was saying originally, like morality, ethics, where does that all go back to? If you don't believe in a god, a higher power, how can you possibly make sense of like morality and ethics? It all becomes fucking it becomes so absurdly meaningless. These types of things, morality, ethics, it only fucking makes sense if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in a god or whatever. If you don't believe in a higher power or a god, it just all becomes kind of fucking meaningless, man. If you don't believe in a higher power, a god, a deity, where does all this come from? Morality, ethics, it comes from fucking nowhere. It comes from your asshole. Basically, it comes from fucking nowhere, man. How can you make sense of these things if you don't believe there's a higher power? It all becomes fucking meaningless. All becomes fucking meaningless, I'm telling you guys. Living in a godless world, let's create like a summary or recap. Morality is going to get thrown out the window. I think, picture like a boat. God is like, and we're in the ocean. It's like a boat moving in the ocean. God is like the sail. It gives you like a direction, some type of existential purpose. We're just going to lose it as human beings. That's another consequence. What else is going to happen? I think also, off the top of my head, I'm kind of losing my memory. But I think what else is going to happen is that we're going to fucking... So, losing existential purpose. We're going to like, once you start to turn away from God, you're going to turn towards hedonism. You're going to live for pleasure, basically. I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to just become more hedonistic, more animalistic. We're not going to be concerned with anything spiritual anymore, finding any sort of higher power. We're just going to revert back into like fucking animals that just only care about like reproducing and fucking and eating a lot of food and whatever. So once you turn away from God, you turn towards hedonism and degeneracy. That's another consequence. What else is going to happen is that I do think so. Yeah, fucking hell, I'm trying to, off the top of my head, bring it back. Oh man, fucking hell, bring it back. Fucking, my memory's all fucked. Come on, am I turning brain dead or something? I can't even fucking remember things like a couple minutes ago, but turn towards pleasure. There was something else I literally cannot, off the top of my head, remember it. Fucking hell. I think that, I fucking think so. Yeah, also turn away from God, turn towards degeneracy, hedonism. I think also that, yeah, we're just going to become more animalistic. Yeah, that's what I said afterwards. We're just going to turn to more, we're not going to be caring about anything more spiritual anymore. We're going to be more caring about pleasure and survival, and we're just going to become more animalistic as human beings. And I think something else also is that, something else that's going to happen is that, yeah, we're just going to lose any type of greater existential purpose. I think I just like a perfect recap. I don't want to keep like wasting time on recapping things. What else? Living in a godless world, anarchy, nihilism. That's not very pretty, is it, guys? No God, no higher power, no rule maker, no legislator. Everything's up for grabs. That's so true, guys. Atheists, they can never offer any type of like, you cannot, as an atheist, you cannot make sense of morality and ethics. It all becomes kind of fucking meaningless. It literally all becomes meaningless, man. Everything about our world becomes so meaningless once you start to detach yourself away from any sort of higher power. You just that you become an atheist. You only think that everything around us is just like products of like fucking evolution or some other shit. You don't think there's any higher power behind anything. You just think that we all basically came out of nothing, basically, fucking for no reason. Fucking hell, it's funny, man. Oh, fucking hell. Hopefully you guys are paying attention to like my videos. You're kind of understanding what I'm trying to get at here. Fucking nihilism and atheism, they go hand in hand. I made so many videos about this. I have to keep digging into it though. It's so funny to me though that so many idiots, they don't fucking make sense of any of this. It's so hilarious actually. It's very much funny to me. There's so many people, they don't even bother. They don't even want to make sense of it. Anyway, living in a godless world is not going to be pretty. To put it in a nutshell, we're going to be living in a very dark, depressing world basically. What is a godless world? A godless world's basically a depressing world, guys. We're gonna be like so fucking depressed as human beings. We're gonna be fucking so sad and lost and fucking miserable. I do think so. These fucking dumbass atheists like Richard Dawkins and fucking whoever, they're so ignorant and dumb. They don't see the fucking consequences of their fucking belief system and their fucking atheism. They just fucking try and act so smart, but they don't see the consequences of this fucking horrible like worldview to have. It's fucking horrible, man. If you're watching my videos, hopefully you're fucking learning from all of this and you're kind of like, you're seeing through the matrix. This fucking world that we live in is like so fucking cryptic. We're so like fucking, we're lied to so consistently. It's fucking insane. Hopefully you're seeing through all of this bullshit, guys. And you're fucking becoming a little bit more enlightened and all that type of stuff. A godless world is going to be a depressing world, fucking sad world. If you don't believe in a god, a higher power, where are you going to get your existential purpose from? It all becomes fucking meaningless. It all goes to, you believe in nothing basically. If you believe that there is no god, you believe in basically nothing, that we came from nothing, that we're just like fucking, we're just fucking accidents. We weren't made or anything like that. We came from fucking nothing and we're just gonna die. Nothing's gonna happen. Everything's just happened for no reason basically. It's fucking, this is so sad, guys, and that's what most atheists believe. They believe in this type of fucking bullshit. And a lot of you guys are probably gonna get duped into this type of bullshit as well, but hopefully my videos are helping you out tremendously, guys. A godless world is gonna be a fucking depressing, sad, fucking twisted world. Everything's gonna go upside down. I do think so, guys. I think everything about our world is going to turn to shit. Everything's going to become so fucking horrible. We're just going to turn into animals basically again. I do believe so. We're all just going to become fucking primates again, I guess. We still are primates, but we're going to be even more animalistic. We're going to be even worse than chimpanzees. We're going to be like lower than even chimps. I don't know. I think religion and God, that's what made us so like far ahead of all these other animals on our planet. All these other animals, like there's no other animal on this planet that even cares about like religion and God. It's not so weird. It's only as human beings that we care about religion and believing in a higher power, a God. And from that God we get our existential purpose and our higher meaning and fulfillment from. But no other animal has these types of like thought patterns and belief systems and etc. We're the only creature that cares about religion and God. That should tell you something, guys. That should really, really fucking tell you something, man. That should really tell you something, guys. Why is it that we're the only fucking animal species that believes in a higher power, a God? Is it a coincidence that we believe in a higher power, a God, etc., and deities, and we also are like super advanced in terms of our technology and our culture and our civilization? Is that all a coincidence, guys? I don't think so. Why is it that other animals don't seem to give a fuck about like religion and God? And is it a coincidence that they pretty much just play with their feces all day, and while we build rockets and spaceships? It's not a coincidence, guys, and civilization in general, and buildings and all that. It's not a coincidence, guys. Once you turn away from God, the only thing left to turn towards is like fucking hedonism and pleasure. There's nothing else left to turn to. That's why living in a godless world is all gonna turn to shit, guys. It's gonna be all fucking shitty and depressing. Everything, we're just gonna turn to fucking animals again. I think so. That's the one thing that us human beings, that's what makes us so unique as an animal species, is that we believe in like a higher power, religion and God. We believe that there's something above our material existence. No other animal or creature has this type of belief system and mindset and feelings and emotions. It's so abnormal for any other animal to have these types of like beliefs and feelings and emotions about this type of world that we have right now, to believe in like something above our material existence. No other creature can even fathom about that. It's only us human beings. living in a godless world. So basically, morality is going to get thrown out the window. We're going to lose our existential purpose. We're going to turn towards hedonism and degeneracy. We're going to become more animalistic. Everything's going to go upside down. Everything's going to turn to shit. I think that's pretty much it, guys. I don't want to keep blabbering on and on. Hopefully you think about this carefully. And that's about it.